listening to Late Night Radio on the SHR Media Network. Caution, there will be mature themes explored and potentially adult language used. If conservatarian words, phrases, certain concepts, or rhetoric offends you, tune out now.
Guess what day it is? Guess what day it is? Huh? Anybody? Julie, hey, guess what day it is? Oh, come on, I know you can hear me. Mike. What day is it, Mike?
You magnificent bastard, I read your book. I drink your milkshake.
How dare you?
I call that bold talk for a one-eyed fat man.
Fill your hand, you son of a bitch!
Captain.
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 Captain. Captain.
Captain.
Captain.
Captain. Captain. Captain.
Captain.
No, not yet. Not yet. Don't pass out on me yet.
Of course you realize this means war.
Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it on to our children in the bloodstream. The only way they can inherit the freedom we have known is if we fight for it, protect it, defend it, and then hand it to them with the well-taught lessons of how they in their lifetime must do the same. And if you and I don't do this, then you and I may well spend our sunset years telling our children and our children's children what it once was like in America when men were free.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk, Bobcat, Saloon radio show, where I'm broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, always spelled with a K. I'm here 2 miles east of the locus of evil on the entire left coast. The Bill Mill, the belly of the beast, the Capitol building in downtown Sacramento at 10th and L Streets, where late at night you can hear the death of common sense and its concomitant wail as it wafts from that putrefying edifice. And at the end of the show, when I exit the sumptuous, palatial, and resplendent SHR Media studios, I'll be smelling the odoriferous stench of sulfur, brimstone, and evil emanating from that evil building in downtown Sacramento. Now, be forewarned, what you're about to hear for the next 2 hours is my opinion and my opinion only. And because of the fear porn that has gripped this nation, the saloon isn't open, but I am still serving stiff drinks, facts, history, logic, rationality, proportion, context, tradition, intent, and common sense. Out the back door. A reminder, though, standard, we don't water our drinks just like we don't water our conversation, politics, religion, crime, culture, economics, race, sex, science, law. We talk about it all right here at the saloon where the speech is free, but the booze is not. This is 2020, and I am done with bipartisanship or compromise. This is the new age of modern political warfare because, make no mistake, we are at war. And it's a war on the street, and it's a war for your mind, and it's a war for the ballot box. We now know more than ever it began with a soft coup against President Trump. It continues with a United States that's lost its mind and is ripe for two things. It's either going to be utter capitulation or potentially the second Civil War. I hope it's neither. I hope sanity comes to roost. I wish I could say that I was guaranteed of that. I cannot say. This is going to be a semi-continuation of what I started on Tuesday night. And that is to say, we'll have some more coronavirus stuff. Jack Alexander is here with us tonight. So, Jack, are you there, sir?
Yes, I'm still free and on the run.
Okay. All right. That's good. If I'm not mistaken, you had a lunch recently, and it consisted of some good GURP. So what was it, pray tell?
There is this gourmet burger joint that's opened up in town here, and they do this wonderful braised, slow-cooked pork belly burger.
Now, I've always been... Are pork belly burgers really out of pork belly?
Oh, yeah, this was.
Oh, and do pigs look down one day and all of a sudden go, my, I'm looking rather svelte these days. I wonder how that happened.
Yes. But, I always make it a point to have at least one lunch a week that is going to offend Islam in the happiest possible way.
It's funny you should mention that, because when I get to the part where you and I are going to be speaking about the coronavirus, I have a couple of, I have a very interesting audio from a video of that issue, that topic in Australia. And I think I've got two other audio cuts with regard to Australia. What we didn't get time for last Tuesday, I had a 3-hour special report on coronavirus, why the lockdown, and where's the science. And, of course, any right-thinking human being, proper-thinking human being, or right-thinking human being would logically conclude that let my people free. Open America up. Period. End of statement. And it was 3 hours of reason after reason, article after article, video after video from doctors, scientists, and people quoting actual statistics. Open America up. And if you want to go back and see it, you can go to shrmedia.com. I have a massive archive of past shows there, and you're also welcome. In chat, we have, look, it is Yak Alexander right there. I see him.
Yay!
In the chat room. We have the real as opposed to the fake. The fake Mike Pasqua has only been here once. We ridiculed the hell out of him, and he never came back. So thank God it's the real Mike Pasqua. We have Sergeant Booker and the Alaskan. Not kind of the Alaskan, but the Alaskan. There really is only one Alaskan, one each, and he's here tonight, and Leslie Holker. So thanks for being here, folks. I don't have my Facebook on yet, because Facebook... As we probably already recognize, last Tuesday's show was completely about Wuhan 19. So if you think the Facebook streaming presentation of my show survived that, well, you'd be wrong. It didn't. It was smushed. Schmutz. Somebody said schmutz the other day, and I liked that. It was completely eradicated, pulled out by its little digital roots. You won't find it anywhere in the Facebook world. You know what? I was expecting that. I really was. Sooner or later, I was listening to Jeremy Hansen. Jeremy and I are friends. Where he lives in Missouri, I live in California. I always spell it with a K. A number of 1,000 miles away. And yeah, Leslie in chat says, that sounds like a Minnesota word. It could be. Schmutz. Schmutz. You know, you have a little bit of schmutz right there. Look at him. He's got some schmutz. Put that schmutz down. I told you. How many times I got to tell you? Everybody out of the pool. Kids, get off the lawn right now. No schmutz. Put down the damn schmutz. Don't even leave it in my gutter. Get out of here. God, what compilation was that? There was a little bit of like little old me, like a little old Jewish guy, and there was a New York guy, and God, I can't even do accents.
I don't know. I kept hearing Mel Brooks as Rabbi Tuckman in Men in Tights.
Okay, okay. Oh, Leslie Holker says Facebook is showing you BZ because I'm there too. They love to freeze it up there. Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do. So tonight, what I'd like to do, I have a ton of audio that I'm going to be playing. If you, folks, if you go to CNN, why would you? Now, I should say parenthesis. Why would you? But if you do, they're lying 24/7 about the SCOTUS vacancy. I'm going to set that right tonight. And I'm of two minds about this. I told you I'm going to review and talk to you about I'm going to read this book to you. I would recommend, this is one of the few times where I would recommend that you actually watch the show, because I have a book right here. It's called Not My Idea. Now, if you look, you can see it. It's one of those little thin children's books. And this is the biggest pile of anti-white, anti-American. It's the biggest anti-American, anti-white, BLM positive, Antifa positive, anarchist positive, children's screed bit of propaganda that I've ever seen. But I can't say that I have my finger on the pulse of children's publishing. But the reason I'm bringing this to you tonight is because I want you to know, parents, if you're listening to me and you have kids in the, 7 or 8 year old range, but I think this is targeted at about 7, 8, 9, 10, right around in there. Dave Miller, welcome to chat. So I was going to read this, and I actually went out and spent my money to get this, because the part of this that I'm going to read to you, there are illustrations in here. So, Jack, what do you think? Do I want to do this first, or do I want to go to coronavirus first, or do I want to go to some really brain-glazing cuts that just point their stupid fingers at each other at leftists about the SCOTUS vacancy? Which one should I attack first? Because there will be attacking tonight, Jack.
Oh, how about we finish off the COVID thing first?
You want to start with that?
And let's start with that in case the SWAT team turns up at my door.
Oh, that is a really good reason. Okay. I understand your logic. I get it. Let's see.
Considering the law changes here that have come in this week, it's gotten really, really weird here.
Okay, I've got a 2-minute video. We'll start with that. We'll start with Jack's update on coronavirus and Wuhan in specifically the state of Victoria in Australia. Before I do that, though, I said that I'd have a video for you. I'd like to play this, and then, Jack, if you have any comments in the midst of this, pipe up, or then if you just let the whole thing go ahead and play. At the end of it, it's about 2 minutes. I'd like your input regarding this. This is a guy named Daniel Andrews. And apparently you're familiar with this guy, Jack.
I swear, this guy has looked at the California governor and said, "Here, hold my beer."
Anyway, it says it's his guide to avoiding fines in Victoria. Diversity is our strength. Okay. Well, that's kind of appealing. Let's see what Daniel Andrews
I might start with an
has
apology.
to say.
I know that members of the Afghan community might have felt singled out by statements I made recently. That was Mazarat Miham or Wabakhay. I apologise.
Whether you're a person
that's not Daniel Andrews. That's the health minister.
That's the health minister. Okay.
Yeah. The guy apologising in Farsi was the health minister.
Okay.
Not Daniel Andrews.
Yeah, but wait.
The second voice is Daniel Andrews.
Then here he comes.
Whether your parents were born here, or doesn't matter what part of the world you came from, what language you speak, how much money you earn, what postcode you're in, doesn't matter. Your age, your gender, none of that matters.
There are 5 households across Hallam, Clyde, Narrowwarren South and Cranbourne North. And across those 5 households, we currently have 34 positive cases.
The other point here is that there are rules and they have to be enforced. And virus doesn't discriminate, we're not discriminating, and no one gets to choose which rules that they'll follow and which rules they won't.
But we've also seen in this particular cluster visiting of houses beyond the 5k radius. So these 5 houses in this particular cluster have had, unfortunately, some members of those households visiting other households.
These families weren't going to be fined, even though they broke the rules.
These families aren't going to be fined even though they broke the rules. Now, your understanding, folks, I know Jack knows, I know Dave knows, I know a lot of the people that are in the chat room right now at shrmedia.com know what this is about, but the families that broke the rules that they're not going to fine happen to be Muslim.
Because you wanted to get information from them.
Correct.
Why can't you get information from them and give them a fine?
Well, let me go back through this again yesterday, and I'm happy to concede that might seem a counterintuitive point, and perhaps we'd all feel a bit better if they got slapped with a fine.
Right.
But the value of the information that allows you to take one test result and then find the 33 other people who've got it is much more than $1,652.
Why not fine them as
In
well?
fact, it is, because I think that if you start doing that, you run the very real risk that people are not full and frank in the interviews. Or indeed, some people may not come forward and get tested.
If I broke the rules and didn't get COVID, I'd be fined.
Yes.
Yet here are these people breaking the rules, getting
Well, I
COVID.
understand. Believe me, the frustration is a shared one.
Okay, I speak leftist. Jack, I'm pretty sure you speak leftist too. The translation is, we don't care what you think, shut up, pay your taxes, because we don't want to aggravate, as the British call them, we don't not want to aggravate the Asians. They could shoot us. They might have guns.
But again, that's where you've got to just take a step back and think these things through.
Right.
And no fine, frankly, would ever equate to how valuable, no amount of money would ever be anywhere near how valuable the information that person gives to us.
So, Mazarat Mecham, or Wabachai, I apologise.
Yeah. So there's Australia apologizing for potentially offending Islam in Australia because, well, everybody else is going to get socked with a fine if you're found violating Wuhan 19 rules, or you'll go to jail, and get a fine, but we wouldn't want to put those onerous restrictions on our poor Muzzy friends, would we?
Oh, but it gets worse.
Okay.
There's a lot to this story that this particular family has now, through contact tracing, found out to be responsible for the entire second wave of corona infections that includes more than 700 deaths.
Now, is this in what is this in Victoria?
This is in Victoria.
Okay.
Adult family members who didn't live in the 5 houses out on the outer eastern suburbs that they were talking about there were living in government-subsidised housing where closer into the city. Work as security guards and domestic help in nursing homes.
Beautiful. It's your own little Andrew Cuomo.
Yeah.
Or series of Andrew Cuomos. Multiple Andrew Cuomos.
One of the family members, or at least one of the family members, works for a security company that was a subcontractor of a subcontractor of a subcontractor who was contracted by the state government to guard a couple of hotels that were being used for quarantine. Now, one of the things that's come out in a royal commission in this was that many of the security guards, mostly of belonging to the religion of peace, were extorting sexual favors from the people trapped in quarantine, or women trapped in quarantine in these hotels, so they could sneak out and go shopping and so on. So some of these women happen to have been COVID or infectious with COVID. So then the security guards took them back to these took COVID back to the high-rise government subsidized housing, also full of Muslim immigrants who predominantly work in either domestic roles or deliver Uber Eats and Dinner Dash and all those sorts of things. And, they're related to this family out in the eastern suburbs who just completely ignored the rules. So this one family and the complete clusterfuck that is the hotel quarantine system is completely responsible for the entire second shutdown. And now they do not want to fine them?
Well, you don't want to run the risk of offending Islam. Come on.
And they keep saying, well, we don't want to do this because the information, is more valuable, which is the biggest load of horse shit out there, considering some of the new pre-crime law that came in this week in Victoria. But we'll talk about that in a second. There has been a law on a federal law that's been in place since when AIDS became a big thing, where it is a felony to knowingly transmit a communicable disease. Now, that is a federal crime. Yet the federal government has essentially been completely spayed, neutered, and hung out to dry by Daniel Andrews and the government. The Prime Minister, who belongs to the opposing political party, I might add, refuses to act on constitutional violations to bring Daniel Andrews in line, saying, well, it's the states' rights thing. But when, I'm quite sure even in the United States, when states' rights issues begin affecting the national security and the financial security of a nation, the federal government should be getting involved.
You'd think.
Yeah. The wife of the security guard worked in a nursing home. And several other female members of this family worked as cooks or cleaners in nursing homes. So that sort of spread around. Other family members who were working in the security industry as nightclub bouncers, they got reassigned to do these hotel security issues, or guarding, or just running, general security at COVID testing spots. This one family has spread this right around the city. And the city is suffering.
Well, we can't have that getting out, can we? Because you might actually have people getting pissed at a strata of society that, well, they're special. They're really special. And so as that government is indicating, well, let's just keep this in-house. Number one, we don't want to discriminate against Islam. And number two, it might make us look incompetent that we're having people getting killed, actual Australians getting killed.
The incompetency is just getting the levels of incompetency are really coming out. I mean, the whole hotel quarantine thing. No government minister wants to take responsibility for it. Oh, whose idea was it to bring in these private security companies that then subcontracted out multiple? Oh, I don't know. That wasn't me. It must have been another department. I mean, right all the way up to the Premier's office. Nobody wants to take responsibility for the complete screw-up that's going on. Just like the advice to lock down the state. That somebody tried to say, well, it was the health officials that said that. Nobody in the health department wants to take responsibility for it. And then they changed, well, police said it would make it easier for them. Either the previous chief of police and now the new chief of police, neither of them have said, we weren't even consulted on all of this. Right from the word go, the Andrews government had an invite from the Prime Minister's office to use military personnel to look after these hotels. And while the military personnel that were being offered were the wrong sort, in my opinion, They were offering infantry to just add security when they should have sent in medics. But the security, and here's the other silly thing with the whole security guards. They were offered specialist training prior to the hotel lockdown in diversity and race issues. They had not 1 second of training in infection control and the correct use of personal protective equipment.
You could say that some nursing facilities across America were in that same station too, but this appears to be a situation in which the Australian federal government, in its incompetence, is mashing you two ways. It's suppressing the information that should be getting out involving these members of Islam. They don't want to get it out, and they don't want it known that they're favoring one strata of individual in favor of another individual. The second crush is, well, those people who actually do obey laws, we will step on their necks. We will find them. We will tackle them. We will arrest them, and we'll throw them in jail.
Well, now it's even gotten worse. This week they introduced pre-crime laws in for all of this.
Oh, pre-crime. Pre-crime.
Oh, yeah.
Pre-crime laws. Okay, is that like thought police now? Are the thought police actually in Australia?
Yeah. The bill is the COVID-19 Omnibus Emergency Measures Bill of 2020. And now just having the suspicion that somebody may think about breaking quarantine is enough to have you locked up without charge indefinitely. But it doesn't stop there. They've also got measures in there to shut down independent or media and freelance media, because any of the media outlets that are based in Victoria are very much in lockstep with the government narrative. The only one outside that's truly covering it with any sort of open-mindedness is Sky News, because they're based in New South Wales, not in Victoria, which is an important thing under this new thing. Under this pre-crime bill, they're now authorising people who are not sworn law enforcement officers and giving them arrest powers. Very broad arrest powers. And having read the bill, there are no checks and balances in this. They've now threatened to use Child Protective Services social workers to come in and take children away for being in an unsafe home environment if you are one of these people that posts on social media complaining about what's going on, or you're an independent journalist. If you are a small media outlet that is based in Victoria and is continuing to try and get the truth out, they will send the workplace safety inspectors out there to shut you down as an unsafe workplace. Because, of course, it's an unsafe workplace if people are out there not, in lockstep with the government narrative. It is even to the point now where if you are one of these authorized civilians, these unsworn agents of the government, you can have anyone arrested for any reason claiming it under this and not have any checks and balances in there. The law is so, several of our highest legal minds, including former Supreme Court judges, have come out and said this is just ripe for abuse. Now, as we pointed out before, Islam had this big apology from members of the state government. Now, there's a lot of Muslims working within these government departments. I know at my local social security office, there is a rabid jihadist that works there controlling people's welfare. And there have been many complaints against this guy for cutting you off just because, well, you might have an opinion about Islam.
We're going to have to
cut off your welfare.
We're going to have to take a break on that. I'm going to go to this, come back, and I have found a story from theguardian.com of Australia about this, and then I'd like Jack to fill in some more information behind this. I'm BZ, that's Jack Alexander. You are in the Saloon. We'll be right back after this.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
From a public locker inside a dilapidated Long Island rail station comes a show designed to piss off liberals using truth, facts, and ridicule. The Lid Radio Show, featuring the conservative voice from the People's Republic of New York, the Lid himself, Jeff Dunetz. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com. At Lid Radio, we fight for the truth, justice, and a good kosher T-bone. If you don't listen, Hillary Clinton might sneak into your bedroom in her housecoat late at night and blame you for her election loss. It's the Lid Radio Show with Jeff Dunetz.
Hey, are you guys listening? This is Shannon from Right Way with Shannon and Mike in the AM on SHR Media. I know you've been wondering where we are and what's been going on. Well, folks, that's right. We're back. So please join us 7 to 9 a.m. Monday through Thursday on SHR Media, on Spreaker, iHeartRadio, and Spotify, and Facebook Live at 11 a.m. on Right Way with Shannon and Mike in the AM at Facebook. You don't want to miss a minute. We've got lots of guests, lots of segments, and lots of interesting things. And let's face it, there's nowhere for you to go, so you might as well tune in. Again, Right Way with Shannon and Mike in the AM. We're back live on the air on SHR Media, 7 to 9 a.m. Monday through Thursday, audio and Facebook Live, audio and video. Yes, we are going to do video. Facebook Live, Right Way with Shannon and Mike in the AM. Hope to see you soon.
Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, a mere 2 miles from the state capital, the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show can be heard every Tuesday and Thursday night at 8 p.m. Pacific and 11 p.m. Eastern. Only on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com to listen. You can also watch on the SHR Media Facebook page and the SHR Media YouTube channel. No goldfish were abused in the making of this ad.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
It is he that is me, bringing perspective from across the sea. Join me, Jack Alexander, 4 days a week for the Jack Alexander Experiment podcast, as I take a unique outsider's look at the news and issues affecting life and liberty here in the USA. I'll show you what the mainstream media refuses to. Politics, border security, defense, healthcare, travel, nothing is off limits. Catch the Jack Alexander Experiment podcast each Monday to Thursday on Facebook, YouTube, and everywhere good podcasts can be found. Also, check out the website, www.jackalexanderexperiment.com.
Southern Sense is conservative talk with Annie, the radio chick you bellows as host, and C.S. Bennett co-host. Informative, fun, irreverent, and politically incorrect. You never know where they'll go, but you'll love the journey. Annie is a top conservative host on Top Talk Radio and features some of the finest guests packed with important politicians and newsmakers. Listen every Friday, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern, noon to 3 Pacific, on the SHR Media Network. Remember, Southern Sense is common sense.
After 6 years covering terror and corruption, the Unpleasant Blind Guy is making a change. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker and YouTube through SHR Media and on the Western Free Radio Network as I team up with Jeff Mitchell, host of the English Defense League radio show on blogtalkradio.com. Check show pages for airtimes. It's the Unpleasant Blind Guy.
On EDL Radio.
There's
no surrender, ever.
Because truth is not always pleasant.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, we are back. We're nationwide. I got Jack Alexander on the show tonight. And we're talking about coronavirus, Wuhan 19, the Kung Flu, however you wish to quantify it. Pound out the shares if you would, please. I'm finally starting to remember to say that. If you're watching on Spreaker, hit share it liberally, share everywhere. Sharing is caring. So please be sharing and caring. YouTube, hit the share button. Hit the little subscribe thingy right there. Bing! And subscribe to the SHR Media Network YouTube channel. And if you happen to be on Facebook, share on Facebook. My guess would be this show will have a half-life of till the end of the show before it gets eliminated. But while you're still watching it, share liberally. Let those other people be responsible for for looking at your share, pulling it up, clicking on it, going, where's the video? I don't see no video here. Somebody must have shared it to me. So Jack Alexander, thanks for being here. I found an article from as last we spoke. Let's see, what is this? TheGuardian.com. This is the Australian version, Australia News. It says, overreach and overzealous concerns. See how they mitigate this? All we do is we have, oh, darling, we have concerns over Victoria's proposed new police powers. The state government insists expanded police powers are needed to help battle COVID-19, but civil rights groups disagree. Imagine that. Police have been part of many Victorians' daily life throughout the second wave of the pandemic, stopping cars at checkpoints, knocking on doors to ensure people in quarantine are complying, and roaming the streets, catching those failing to wear a mask and then clubbing them. That was me throwing that in there. Now a bill has been introduced.
That's actually not far from that's actually a pretty accurate description.
That's why I put it in there. That's exactly why I put it in there. Because as you describe things to me, well, that's what it is. Now a new bill has been introduced to Parliament that could widen the role of law enforcement, a move the state government argues is vital, but has been condemned by a number of Victorian civil rights groups and the state's opposition. What powers do police actually have during this time of crisis, and how could this new bill increase them? Does the state of emergency and disaster increase police power? Police and other emergency service officers. Okay, I saw that and I hearkened back to what you said. We know what the police are. Now, the ones that are civilians, are those what they term here, Jack, emergency service officers? Because
they're loosely lumping them in with that category. That they've added in things like protective services, which are essentially cops that aren't quite as sworn in as others who handle protection of government buildings and so on. They've also roped in social workers from the Child Protective Services area. Now, they are just civilians. Work safety inspectors are another ones that have been brought in. Department of Transportation inspectors who, well, they wear a badge, but they've got no real arrest powers. Basically, people that were installed to, or who part of their regular jobs could do investigations, but had no arrest powers. They had to call in the police previously. Now they can act unilaterally.
Well, wonderful, because with all the training, I'm sure they'll act lawfully and with diligence. Wait, what? What? Because it seems in the article they make a distinction between police and what they call emergency service officers. It says they're given a power in a state of disaster by the police minister, who can appoint them as authorized officers able to enforce the new public health direction. So, okay, there it is. It does, but what is conspicuously absent to me is the fact that, what we've done is we've taken a contingent of civilians and may have trained them sufficiently, may not have trained them sufficiently, and they're going to be acting like the police. It says, as authorized officers, police are able to arrest or fine people for acting against the chief health officer directives, such as attending public protests. So no public protests, no breaking curfew, no not wearing a face covering. They can now search homes and cars without warrants and have a greatly expanded ability to compel members of the public to give their name and address, usually only required if you're driving a vehicle or suspected of actually committing a crime. They can also have power to control a person's entry into and from the disaster area. Well, Jack Alexander, all of Victoria is a disaster area, isn't it?
That's exactly it. And, this law was voted in the middle of the night, and surprisingly, the governor signed it first thing in the morning. So it passed unchallenged, essentially in the state house. And already we've got government employed Karens that are going around their own communities, already intimidating members of their local communities. If you don't do what I say, I will arrest you because I'm one of these new authorized people.
I have to ask you.
Already being abused.
I have to ask you, because this is one of the things that pops into my fetid little brain housing group when you say things like this. Have there been people that, when approached by the equivalent of an Australian Karen or whatever they're calling these regimists, has there been anybody yet that has said something similar to "fuck you" and then popped them in the teeth? I'm just curious.
Not that I've heard, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Anyway, I ended up this article. They can have power to control a person's entry into and from the disaster area. The Police Accountability Project, a task force at... Wait a minute. Did you just cough or something? I'll say it again.
Yeah.
And we'll see if you cough.
Yeah.
The Police Accountability Project, a task force at the Flemington and Kensington Community Legal Center, published a list of 10 concerns over increased policing during lockdowns, including that heavy policing could be normalized. Well, that's a very good, logical thing to think. There are lots of incidents of overreach and overzealous policing, and these have discriminant and disproportionate impacts on particular communities. So those same patterns are repeating themselves on a broad scale during COVID. An interim report from the state government revealed that 3 poorest local government areas in Melbourne received 10% of all fines in the first 2 months of the pandemic, while the 3 most advantaged areas received only a combined 2%. Then it asks this: what powers could the new bill give authorized officers? Now, I also noticed the differentiation made here. It doesn't say what powers could the new bill give police. It says authorized officers, emphasizing and again underlining and buttressing what you've said, Jack Alexander. They're expanding this wide up. They're really opening this up and bringing people in, which tells me there aren't enough cops in Victoria to do what they want to do, so they have to expand their gene pool. Have I got that right?
Actually, no. I think it's more of a case of reprioritizing where where the police are being now deployed, because more and more of the population, and we're talking about folks that would never think about going out and protesting. The types that would just say, well, such is life and just deal with it. They're now becoming more and more militant in their opinions. I mean, when you see pictures of 6 big burly male police officers physically detaining 2 grannies for 2 old ladies, I think they were 78 and 80 years of age, who had to stop and sit down and take a rest while they were going for a walk in the park. They were arrested for actually sitting on the park bench because that was closed because of quarantine. You know, when you see that going on, and when you see pregnant women being arrested for a Facebook post.
I saw that one. I saw that video.
Yeah. You know, that has militarized a lot of Australians who normally just wouldn't give a shit. And now, you know, and then when you hear the stories of, you know, the growing suicides that are going on in the area, and you know, we've had 5 suicides in my area of elderly gentlemen who from our locals men's shed. It's a crafters group for predominantly retired people. They spend most of the year making toys for disadvantaged kids. And for many of the members of our local group, it is their only social interaction because their wives have passed away. You know, they've dealt with alcoholism because of that, and it's kept them. It's, you know, it was their outlet to keep them sane. It gave them something to do. Well, just in our local one, we've had 5 suicides in that one group alone. I'm also aware of a young family. They dropped off the kids with grandma, and then mum and dad went home and committed suicide because their business has just been destroyed. You know, those sorts of stories are radicalizing people into protesting that normally wouldn't. And then probably the most tragic one of all this week, a 14-year-old autistic boy wandered off into the woods and got lost. The police search and rescue squad could not be bothered to turn up and search for this young boy because they'd been reallocated to to tracking down people breaking quarantine and issuing, you know, anywhere from $2,000 to $20,000 fines. But my God, they turned out on force and threatened to fine all the community volunteers that turned out to search for this lost boy. So they chased all the volunteers away, and then yesterday they found the 14-year-old boy's dead body, not far from where the police forced the search to stop.
I'm looking at Facebook chat because I finally got that up, and apparently my stream is still going in Facebook. Jeremy Hansen in Facebook chat says, "This is blowing my mind." And the unwritten finished sentence would read something similar to, in what would otherwise be what we assumed initially was a civilized country. What the hell? Now, again, I'm looking at this article.
At the moment, just talking to you and this being broadcast, I'm committing felony journalism, incitement, and sedition.
Well, you terrible seditionist. Well, let's put it this way. I don't know where you are. I'm not saying you're in Australia. I'm receiving you in the United States of America, which still has a few freedoms left. One of the concerns they mentioned in this bill, just like you said, it proposes to broaden the type of people who can be appointed as authorized officers, as well as expanding the powers to detain people likely to refuse or fail to comply with quarantining directions. So, one of the first things you have to think of is, because this is going to occur sooner or later, number one, are these people armed? Are they trained? What kind of weapons or defensive weapons do they have, if any at all? Or are is the Australian government in Victoria just deciding that they're going to send civilians into potentially volatile situations completely unarmed and completely untrained? Because what if somebody refuses to quarantine? What if you got somebody that is drug affected? What if you've got mentally impaired people who mentally are unable to comply with self-isolation orders. I wonder if they've thought of those things, Jack?
They're not arming them. They're sending them out untrained, unarmed. And I actually think that they're doing this deliberately so that those people will be assaulted, so they can escalate the charges into something that won't get turned over in a constitutional challenge in the Australian High Court. Because everyone that's getting arrested at the moment, there are lawyers from legal companies interstate that are lining up to defend these people pro bono and challenge this all the way to the Australian equivalent of the Supreme Court. So why I think they're now sending these authorised civilians in is so they can get them on assault, get people on assault charges. So they can actually get people to, entice people into actually committing, a crime against these people.
Okay, let me ask you a question. I'm going to go one more paragraph into this article because it again affirms what you told us earlier in the first half hour, but I'll get to that in just a moment. We understand in the United States why this lockdown is occurring. It's all about OMB. Like I said on Tuesday, in an election year, everything is about the election. Everything, no matter what. And you tell me it isn't? Bull. It is. So we mostly understand in the United States why all this crap is occurring on behalf of leftist Democrats, aided and abetted by the American media maggots. Okay, I grok that concept. I get that over here. So, as far as I know, you guys aren't having an election. So what's the motive by being as oppressive and suppressive of citizens by the government, at least in Victoria? What's that all about?
I think it was less than 12 months ago that we had a state election. Daniel Andrews and his Labor Party cronies are in no fear of having to fight an election, which means that, they can push this because they've got control of both houses in the state legislature. They can push this agenda, this socialist agenda. And with the Labor Party, if you are a rabid socialist or you are a Labor union leader, you can do no wrong. And that's what this government is really doing. It is a giant state payback is a bitch for previous administrations bringing the labor unions to heel. I think that has a lot to do with it because there's an interview I watched of a Jim's Mowing franchise owner, and he's been shut down this whole time. He can't even meet his franchise licensing fees. Thankfully the parent organization has said, look, we know there's a problem. We'll work out something with you. But if you happen to work for any of the city councils or the local government or state government, and you are, a landscaper that works for the city or the state, you're still free to go to work. I didn't think that mowing the grass around the Capitol building was an essential piece of employment. Yet, and look, I think all jobs are essential. I don't want to be, quoted as saying, look, I don't believe that gardeners are unessential. So no, to every person out there, every job is essential. I mean, it's essential to keep your family fed and all of that. But, if you are a union gardener working for, and you're protected by I forget which labour union it would be, and you're working for a local government, you're fine. You don't even need papers to go to work. You know, where if you are a building contractor and working on a private construction site, you need papers to travel outside of your 3-mile circle from your registered address.
Excuse me, do you have your papers? Yeah. I'd like to see your
exactly
papers, please. You know,
I mean, the
doesn't it
closest
sound like
checkpoint to me.
Doesn't it sound like 1984? Doesn't it sound like the quote, all animals are equal, except some animals are more equal than others?
That's Animal Farm. Right author, wrong book. That's Animal Farm.
Oh, that Animal Farm, not 1984. Yeah, right. Okay, but I got the author right, Eric Arthur Blair.
Yeah.
I want to read a little bit more of this article. It says it wants to expand the powers of what they call PSOs, Protective Services Officers, like you indicated, a branch of Victoria Police, from just the public transport network and city to shopping centers, sports grounds, and other crowded places. Ariel Couchman, chief executive of Youth Law, said this was extremely troubling. PSO training is grossly inadequate. A 12-week training seminar before they're able to carry lethal weapons into our most crowded community spaces and have the power to detain and move people on. Already we're hearing about incidents at train stations involving PSOs and excessive fining of particular groups of young people, including those with mental illness and people of color. So then they ask, did the state of disaster cause the recent controversial police interactions? Or was this a perfect storm, Jack Alexander, where just like in the United Snakes of America, people are going, you know what? While we're locked down, this is a perfect time to initiate and install A, B, C, and D. While the people are down, let's rear back and kick them.
Yeah. Look, Victoria Police has always had an image problem. They have had a lot of problems over the years with officers and their excessive use of their powers. Not far from where I am on the way to the snowfields, there was a police officer there who, as legend has it, some skiers were drunk driving there and killed his fiancée. So any chance he'd get to pull over someone related to either visiting the mountain or working up there and finding them, they would always find the maximum. Yeah, he was the sort of cop that would go around, oh, you have a busted taillight. No, I don't. And then whack it with a nightstick. You do now. And then fine you for it.
Wow, that's right out of a Hollywood movie.
Yeah. But, I mean, these were the complaints against this guy. And having had interaction with him myself, that's not beyond the realms of possibility. He wanted to, if you have a provincial, when you first get your driver's license in this state, you get what's known as a probationary license, and you have to wear a little plate with a P on it saying that you are a probationary driver. My girlfriend and I at the time had gone up to the mountain, and I'd gotten food poisoning. And we were in my car. Now, I've had my license since I was 18, actually 17, and, she was this was a while ago, but she was still, a few years younger than I was, and still under state law required to display this thing there. Now, I'd gotten food poisoning and was unable to safely operate my motor vehicle. So she drove. And, okay, she got caught speeding. Deserved that fine. That's not the thing. But because she wasn't wearing the P plates on the car, he wanted to arrest her. And I said, look, she's only driving my car because I'm incapable. It took me vomiting on his boots to prove that I was ill and she was only driving, it was unusual for her to be driving this motor vehicle.
I'm going to have to take a break. When we come back, I'm going to go into the book, and then we'll go into the opening in SCOTUS. When we come back, though, I want Jack Alexander, if you would please, to give like about a little bit of a wrap-up as to what's occurring in Australia. And then we're going to motor right on. Folks, that is Jack Alexander. I am BZ. You are in the Saloon, and I will be, I promise, back right after this.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Southern Sense is conservative talk with Annie, the radio chick you bellows as host, and C.S. Bennett co-host. Informative, fun, irreverent, and politically incorrect. You never know where they'll go, but you'll love the journey. Annie is a top conservative host on Top Talk Radio and features some of the finest guests packed with important politicians and newsmakers. Listen every Friday, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern, noon to 3 Pacific, on the SHR Media Network. Remember, Southern Sense is common sense.
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
From a public locker inside a dilapidated Long Island rail station comes a show designed to piss off liberals using truth, facts, and ridicule.
The Lid Radio Show, featuring the conservative voice from the People's Republic of New York. The Lid himself, Jeff Dunnett. Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com. At Lid Radio, we fight for the truth, justice, and a good kosher T-bone. If you don't listen, Hillary Clinton might sneak into your bedroom in her housecoat late at night and blame you for her election loss. It's the Lid Radio Show with Jeff Dunnett.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Good evening. Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show is featured on the SHR Media Network every Tuesday and Thursday night for 2 hours at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific. Whilst manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, BZ continues to radically change the world of leftists, one diaper at a time. Stop balancing your checkbooks. Stop cleaning your fish tanks. The bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show is your magnet for truth, justice, obesity, a darkened studio, and late-night freedom. No United States of America freedoms were abridged in the making of this ad.
This is Shannon Wright.
And this is Michael Wright.
Reminding you to listen
to The Right Way with Shannon and Mike.
Every Monday through Thursday.
7 to 9 a.m.
Right here on shrmedia.com.
Join me, Jack Alexander, for the Jack Alexander Experiment podcast, as I take a unique outsider's look at the issues affecting the USA. I fearlessly take on the issues that everyone else is too scared to touch. The Jack Alexander Experiment podcast is available wherever good podcasts can be found, like Spreaker, iHeartRadio, and Google Podcast. The Jack Alexander Experiment, because it's not a matter of left versus right, it's a matter of right versus wrong.
After 6 years covering terror and corruption, the unpleasant blind guy is making a change. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker and YouTube through SHR Media and on the Western Free Radio Network as I team up with Jeff Mitchell, host of the English Defense League radio show on blogtalkradio.com. Check show pages for airtimes. It's the Unpleasant Blind Guy.
On EDL Radio.
There's
no surrender, ever.
Because truth is not always pleasant.
Featuring the effervescent contrarian sackheads Clint, plus the unrestrained bulbosity of BZ, the Sackheads Against Tyranny is a real chat show. Doubling your late-night conservative talk show pleasure with double the hosts, you can listen every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern. Please note, some contents may have settled during shipping. Member FDIC, batteries not included, warranty void in Montenegro.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
And we are back. Holy Mother of God. It's the second hour of the show already. And still, though it's an hour in, if you would, pound out the sharing on the social media for me. Pretty please. I'm asking nicely. Pretty please. If you're on Spreaker, hit share. If you're on YouTube, hit share. Or Sonny. Well, no, you can't hit Sonny. You'd have to hit him in his casket. He's 6 feet under. Hit share. Yeah, okay, you can hit share. She's way leftist these days. Hit share on YouTube, hit share on Facebook, and hit share on Spreaker. And if you want to go to her house, I don't know, I have no idea where she lives. Maybe you do. And if you want to go hit share there, that's okay. Don't tell her I sent you there, though. Remember, like I say at the beginning of the show, this is only my opinion. Don't take me to heart. Don't take me to Fresno. Hell, don't take me to Galt. Okay? I can drive there myself. Thanks very much for being there. I'm BZ. We're talking to Jack Alexander. Jack, if you had to wrap up this foolishness going on in Australia to date, to this point, because it's 2020, and you know, if it's this stupid now, no matter what it is, it's going to get stupider. Kind of summarize, if you will, what's been occurring in Australia to date.
The absolute abandonment of the Australian way of life is what's going on in the name of, protecting people from the flu. And, Daniel Andrews has these emergency powers extended until well into the winter of next year. So that means that as soon as the cold and flu season comes back again next year, he still has the power to lock everything down again. And the absolute icing on the cake when it comes to the lunacy of what's going on here was an opinion put out by the Australian Human Rights Commission and their commissioner, who previously said that it was unconstitutional to stop people leaving Australia to go and join terrorist organizations because, that was infringing on their human right to choose their own destiny.
Right. Choose to terrorize.
Yet the same commissioner this week turned out and said it's not a violation of human rights to lock down 7.5 million people in essentially under martial law, under house arrest for just breathing the air. That's the ultimate lunacy in all of this. And now with the pre-crime laws, it's getting, even worse. And that's why I put out the video that I did asking for help to get asylum for myself and my family. Journalists are being, independent journalists are getting harassed in their homes. Now with this pre-crime law, they're risking losing their children for what? The crime of journalism. Because they're doing journalism and not being mouthpieces and propagandists for the official state government line.
Jack Alexander, do you still have kids living with you, or have all your kids flown the coop, so to speak?
No. I have young children and adult children.
Okay. All right. Well, that I was going to say something similar to, since you don't have any kids at home, you're not going to have to worry about that. But, yeah, you're going to have to worry about that.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to move on because I'm running out of time, and I don't customarily like to go into overtime because I want to talk about all these videos and audio cuts that I found out that prove what lying fools the Democrats are, because you're not going to hear them on any other show, and you're certainly not going to hear them pimped by the American media maggots. Because this place is so full of hypocrisy. D.C. is dripping with hypocrisy. But I found this book, and this is going to be the one time that you really will want to be in the live stream, the video, right now. Because I saw this book, and I actually went out and bought it. This was $18. I was so shocked by how ridiculous this book is that I didn't want to just say, okay, I've never read this book, but it's a bad book. No, I bought this book, and it's a terrible book. Oh, Leslie Hoker says she got a drink on the break, and I said, hey, what kind of drink? Long Island iced tea? She says, no, gin and tonic with a twist. Very nice. Nice. Very nice there. Very nice. The book is called Not My Day. Now, this is a children's book, as I indicated before. You can see it's children's book size. And, it's called Not My Idea. Not My Idea. And you're thinking, Not My Idea? Huh. What does that have to do with anything? It's written and illustrated by Anastasia Higginbottom. Now, as you open it up, it's not full of fuzzy bunnies and bunny rabbits and goats and unicorns. No, it's the lining says ordinary terrible things. Literally, there are little clouds. And in each cloud it says ordinary terrible things. Well, on the first page, this book is a fucking bummer. I'm starting out, this is page 1. Dear child, looks like you were born to make history. The system of white supremacy shows itself in all its horror. The people are showing ourselves, but took how many things away. Now you, me, and everyone alive in this moment gets to be a part of undoing what should never have been done. We need this moment with our hearts broken many times over. And it keeps going on. It says, not my idea. A book? This is not my idea. A book about whiteness. A book about whiteness. Now, let's see. If I had a producer, you would have heard something similar to, not my idea. A book about whiteness. But I don't have a producer, and that's not what you heard. This is, I don't know, 20 pages. Maybe I won't read the whole thing. I'll just read some salient parts of it. And I might have to interpret. She writes, I made this book for my own white sons, with help from their teachers and mine. It's dedicated to the Brooklyn Free School, where my family was first called upon to engage with whiteness in order to dismantle white supremacy. Then there's a kid that says, when grown-ups try to hide scary things from kids, there's a grown-up saying, oh no, not again. And the kid says, what? Mom, what? Not again. It's usually because they're scared too. Who is that with their hands up? Why is that policeman screaming at him? Bang, 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 bang. They want to bury the truth. You don't need to worry about this. You're safe. Understand? And the little kid says, no. And mommy says, our family is kind to everyone. We don't see color. And she says, deep down, we all know color matters. And there's her daughter drawing a picture of a gun in pencil with hands up. Skin color makes a difference in how the world sees you and in how you see the world. I want to bring a gift to my aunt. This will only take a minute. Someone walks in, and there's a security guard looking at two kids in the store. One is white and one is black. You can see the security guard is looking only at the black child. It makes a difference in how much trouble seems to find you or let you be. In stores, in cars, on sidewalks, at school, your skin color affects the most ordinary daily experiences, including which neighborhoods welcome you. And when you get home, Mom says, so I'm so relieved you got here safely. Why wouldn't we? And Mom says, the protests. And Mom says, they're blocking the road. Mom thinks this is terrible. You may get the message that racism is happening only to black and brown people. Racism is a white person's problem. We are all caught up in it. And Mom says, I can't watch the news. And Mom says, that police officer was just doing his job. And the kid is scared. Mostly by refusing to look at it. You can face this. Mom says, come away from the TV now. Look, I made your favorite, blah, blah, blah. Understanding the truth takes courage, especially the painful truth about your own people, your own family. Mom looks in the back in the rearview mirror and says, are you all right? Even people you love may behave in ways that show, now there's the interior of a car, that they think they are the good ones. And as a little black child walks by, guess who's clicking the door lock button? Racism. This is where the book gets its title. Little child, racism was not your idea. You don't need to defend it. You can bring your curiosity to learn about it and see that it's true. Many white people did things they never should have done. Many other white people failed to see a problem with this. And then it goes into a litany of how white people are bad and black people are good. And racism is still happening. It keeps changing and keeps being the same. And yet, just being here, alive in this moment, you have a chance to take care about this, to commit. But connecting means opening, and opening sometimes feels like breaking. Mom, I don't feel good. They're in the car again. Mom says, should I pull over? I need to know what's going on. And the child says, what are you talking about? The child says, why didn't anyone teach me real history? I do see color. I see yours, mine, and everybody's. You can't hide what's right in front of me. Well, she's pissed at Mom. I know what that police officer did was wrong. And then, here we go. Again, like the drawing, it's blacks with their hands up. I'm not going to go into the rest of this book now. I was going to read the whole thing. It's dark in the studio. This is a child's book. This is endemic of what your child is getting at school, or what I call GAUPs, guilty overeducated white people, are foisting on their children. This is a book. This is a propagandist screed written by leftists, predicated, just like BLM, on a lie. It's predicated on a lie. And I just want to emphasize, this is what's happening. It's an anti-American, anti-white, anti-family. It's BLM propaganda. It's being taught in schools. It's being insisted that you bring it home, and if you don't bring this book home, you're the bad person. Folks, you know that BLM scrubbed their website. They were against the nuclear family. Well, that shit's gone now. That ship literally has sailed. Now, if you go to BZEP, at BZEP, I show you there's a program in there. Or you can go and you can find the old archived versions of websites, meaning you can still find this stuff. Now, I don't have the website up. You're going to have to go do the research for yourself at BZEP, at BZEP. But I found the website as it originally existed, and you can too. Meaning that you can go to these other websites, including the CDC, scour them, scrub them, and find the original shit that these people from now on are going to scrub because they're attempting to mainstream this. They don't want you to know what their original core beliefs are. Now, the core beliefs haven't changed, not a whit, but they don't want to let you know anything about that. So, if there are any parents in here, well, here's another example. Jack, I'm sure you probably heard about this, at least in the United States. Educators were saying similar things to, when we broadcast our schooling to your children, you are not allowed to watch, parents. Now do you get why you're not allowed to watch?
Absolutely.
This is exactly why.
And look, it's not just limited there. I've had run-ins with with the teachers of even my now adult children over, using things like the pocket constitution of the United States as a reader to help them with their reading. And, I've had teachers threaten to call Child Protective Services and report me for teaching racism and violence to my children by letting them read that. I mean, seriously. And this is in Australia.
I believe it. Absolutely, I believe it. I'm going to play some videos. We're going to go on and motor on because I am running out of time a little bit. I hope to be able to hit this major story about what the GOP Senate is going to do with the vacancy in the Supreme Court. And then if I have some time, I'll go over some other things as well. But this all dovetails, folks. Now you can understand why, during times of extremis, leftists right now, as Rahm Emanuel suggested, need to take advantage of a good crisis. But like Alinsky's rules, I talked to George Benko, who is CEO of the Alinsky Center in New York. And when I interviewed him, and I should have him back on, I asked him, Mr. Benko, can't these rules for radicals be used against leftists too? And he said, absolutely they can. They just don't do it. But just as this is a perfect storm for leftists to lean in, and what happened in Los Angeles is, in the teachers union down there, is a perfect example of them taking advantage of said perfect storm because they don't want to go back to school. They don't want to put the kids back into school until police are defunded, charter schools are eliminated, and you can't go into private schools. And there are there's a litany of other things. So basically they're holding this hostage over the heads of parents. Except, conversely, rules for radicals can be utilized by a lot of other people, too. So what's happening? The CTA, California Teachers Association, and the NEA, National Education Association, are crapping in their drawers, and they're not going to tell you about it because what's happening is this. It's being determined and discovered that one teacher can teach 200-300 kids simultaneously. Why do we have teachers? If there is massive efficacy in teaching at home, why do we do that? And because parents can't put their kids back in school, what's also happening simultaneously? Oh, the worst of all possible worlds. Parents are beginning to homeschool, and they will have control over what goes into their kids' minds. Oh, that's terrible. And guess what? Charter schools are being created. Private schools are being created. The worst of all possible worlds. So just leftists, when you think everything is going your way, especially in terms of teaching this pablum and pounding this crap into the eardrums and the ossicles of kids, it might not be working exactly your way. Jack, in Australia, has homeschooling gone up? Do you know offhand?
Well, yeah, everyone's being homeschooled at the moment because of the lockdown. And when we had the first round of it, a lot of the teachers' unions here were saying, this hasn't worked the way we'd planned because parents are now giving a contrary point of view to what we want the students to understand about the world. So, yeah, I've noticed there's some big differences between lockdown homeschooling, version 1.0 to version 2.0.
See, leftists on every level are taking every bit of culture in the United States, and it would be apparent in Australia as well, to rework and remanipulate everything in their own image. Purple skies, more unicorns, more bullshit, more prairie farts. It's all coming to a big either, like I said at the beginning of the show, either there will be utter capitulation or we're going to win. November 3rd isn't about Republicans or Democrats. Get it through your thick skulls. It literally is about good and evil. It's literally about whether or not this country is going to survive. Jack, as you well know, if this country doesn't survive, Australia is not going to have a very good partner anymore.
No. But, I mean, most of Australia now seems to have sold out to China anyway. So I'm not even sure that Australia's a good partner for the United States anymore.
Yeah, how sad that is. I got 5 more minutes before the bottom of the hour break. I'm going to change topics and change gears. So what I'm curious about is, we know that Ruth Bader Ginsburg, she passed, U.S. Supreme Court Associate Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She passed away on Friday, September 18th. And you were here. You weighed in. We had myself and Sean had a special last-minute Ruth Bader Ginsburg passing show, What Next? What's Happening? To discuss a few things. I didn't have access to all the video and all the audio that I do now. Anyway, she passed away then at the age of 87. And the world turned upside down. And a whole host of issues are on the table. I'm not going to talk about her personal life. Everybody has done that ad nauseum, ad infinitum. I can't begin to address all that stuff, and I'm not going to do it. What I do here, however, is address politics, her politics, and the politics of, so what is next? You know, personally, I'm sure she was a good woman, and it's clear she had numerous challenges in her life. Her multiple bouts with cancer, and her husband, Marvin, passed at the age of 78. He had metastatic cancer himself. I think he passed away in 2010, something like that. Now, that's the personal stuff, not a politics, and that is this, which very few people seem to care about. How can I've always asked this. How can an actual sitting Associate Supreme Court Justice eschew the United States Constitution when you're talking to a foreign power, in the case of this video, Egypt, about creating their own constitution? If Ruth Bader Ginsburg didn't recommend the Constitution of the United States to anybody else in 2012, I asked then and I ask now, how could she have been trusted to uphold it when essentially anything comes in front of her?
Would Your Honor's advice be that a society like ours, with what we like to call a transition to the Second Republic,
Egypt,
would Your Honor's advice be to get a part or use other countries' constitutions, maybe the United States or other countries, as a model, or we come up with our own methods and our own draft?
You should certainly be aided by all the constitution writing that has gone on since the end of World War II. I would not look to the U.S. Constitution if I were drafting a constitution in the year 2012.
I would not look to the U.S. Constitution if I was drafting a constitution in 2012, which is when that interview occurred. Why would that be? I submit it's about negative versus positive rights. The U.S. Constitution, folks, is crafted in such a way as to tell our government what it can't do against its citizens. The rights, as clearly stated, granted United States citizens don't come from government. They come from God. Our rights are life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, and that's set forth in the Declaration of Independence. Nowhere, this is what leftists despise, nowhere does any American document guarantee any outcome whatsoever, nor should it. Opportunity? You're going to get your opportunity, of course, for everybody. But it's the responsibility of persons to act, responsibly. And with that, we'll be right back.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Southern Sense is conservative talk with Annie, the radio chick you bellows as host, and C.S. Bennett co-host. Informative, fun, irreverent, and politically incorrect. You never know where they'll go, but you'll love the journey. Annie is a top conservative host on Top Talk Radio and features some of the finest guests packed with important politicians and newsmakers. Listen every Friday, 3 to 6 p.m. Eastern, noon to 3 Pacific, on the SHR Media Network. Remember, Southern Sense is common sense.
It's your business diva here, Melanie Collette. I am inviting you to a front row seat as I discuss some of the most intriguing details of wealth and finance with today's movers and shakers in the world of business. Listen in and discover financial truths on a global, domestic, and household scale. Uncover topics that will impact your wallet today and in the future. Money Talk with Melanie airs Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. East, 2 p.m. West, right here on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio. You can't afford to miss it.
From a public locker inside a dilapidated Long Island rail station comes a show designed to piss off liberals using truth, facts, and ridicule.
The Lid Radio Show, featuring the conservative voice from the People's Republic of New York. The Lid himself, Jeff Dunnett.
Tune in every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific on the SHR Media Network. Go to shrmedia.com. At Lid Radio, we fight for the truth, justice, and a good kosher T-bone. If you don't listen,
Hillary Clinton might sneak into your bedroom in her housecoat late at night and blame you for her election loss.
It's the Lid Radio Show with Jeff Dunnett.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Good evening. Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show is featured on the SHR Media Network every Tuesday and Thursday night for 2 hours at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific. Whilst manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, BZ continues to radically change the world of leftists, one diaper at a time. Stop balancing your checkbooks. Stop cleaning your fish tanks. The bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show is your magnet for truth, justice, obesity, a darkened studio, and late-night freedom. No United States of America freedoms were abridged in the making of this ad.
This is Shannon Wright.
And this is Michael Wright.
Reminding you to listen
to The Right Way with Shannon and Mike.
Every Monday through Thursday.
7 to 9 a.m.
Right here on shrmedia.com.
Join me, Jack Alexander, for the Jack Alexander Experiment podcast, as I take a unique outsider's look at the issues affecting the USA. I fearlessly take on the issues that everyone else is too scared to touch. The Jack Alexander Experiment podcast is available wherever good podcasts can be found, like Spreaker, iHeartRadio, and Google Podcast. The Jack Alexander Experiment, because it's not a matter of left versus right, it's a matter of right versus wrong.
After 6 years covering terror and corruption, the unpleasant blind guy is making a change. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker and YouTube through SHR Media and on the Western Free Radio Network as I team up with Jeff Mitchell, host of the English Defense League radio show on blogtalkradio.com. Check show pages for airtimes. It's the Unpleasant Blind Guy.
On ADL Radio.
There's
no surrender, ever.
Because truth is not always pleasant.
Featuring the effervescent contrarian sackheads Clint plus the unrestrained bulbosity of BZ, the Sackheads Against Tyranny is a real chat show. Doubling your late-night conservative talk show pleasure with double the hosts, you can listen every Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Pacific, 11 p.m. Eastern. Please note, some contents may have settled during shipping. Member FDIC, batteries not included, warranty void in Montenegro.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
I know it's late in the show. This is the final 25. The final 25 minutes of the show. Damn it! Does it seem like an hour and a half passed as though it was 3 seconds? It sure as hell does to me. Thanks to everybody in chat. Thanks to Facebook chat. Fat. I'm fat. You're Facebook. In Facebook chat, thanks to Jeremy Hansen, Jimmy Collins. Jack is in Facebook chat. Thanks to everybody. Mike, Sergeant Booker, the Alaskan, Dave Milner, Leslie Holker, Jack Alexander, one viewer who will not be unmasked here. Thanks to everybody for being here tonight. I'm talking about what's going to happen with the unfilled seat. Because, as you well know, leftists are losing their shit. Well, you're about to hear exactly that. The vacancy created, we know that nature abhors a vacuum, right? So this is a vacuum. And whereas before Republicans were hesitant to wield power, remember, go back, George Bush held the trifecta and didn't do crap with it because of the Senate and the House. And McCain was there, too. Well, there's a spoiler right there. There's a cat turd in your punch bowl right there, John McCain. Never speak ill of the dead. Screw that. He had the White House. The Republicans had the White House. They had the House. They had the Senate. And they didn't do shit with it. It appears Mitch McConnell is kind of maybe set to deliver again. A little bit kind of like he did in Merrick Garland. And then, of course, the threats and the screaming began. And if you haven't heard this, here's what I call an AKU. This is an adult Karen unit. And remember, these people are all around you. They could be driving right next to you right now. And you wouldn't even know it. Uh-oh.
Driving your car, but I just got a notification that Ruth Bader Ginsburg died! Fuck! Could this year get any fucking worse? Ruth, you just had to make it to 2021! Holy fucking shit, you guys! I'm driving your car, but I just got a notification
that unit drives vehicles next to you. That's kind of frightening. There were more. They were shrill, and I wasn't going to subject you to all of that. Senate Minority...
Actually, I got a question on that one. As
Okay.
a former police officer, wouldn't that be video evidence of her operating a motor vehicle in an unsafe manner?
Yeah, you know, 5-10 years ago, you might have been able to get away with that in the States. Now that crap isn't going to fly anymore.
I mean, that one reminds me of the woman that leant out of the driver's side of her vehicle to flip off Trump supporters and then ran up the arse end of somebody else's Escalade in front of a police car.
Oh God, I have stories that I could tell you about stuff like that. So Chucky Schumer started screaming too, and you know, the body. Okay, this occurred on Friday. The body hadn't even cooled. Okay, and Chucky Schumer is screaming already. The Senate should wait until next year to fill the Supreme Court left vacant by Ruth Bader Ginsburg. They're screaming that because I think they know what Trump is going to do. Now, would another president have done that? I don't think. Another GOP president? I don't think so. But here's the deal. Remember this phrase, folks. As the revered Barack Hussein Obama once chirped at Republicans, elections have consequences. Okay, and then so I got to ask you this. Did you ever know any Democrat or a series or a contingent of Democrats not to wield power when they had it, to hold back anything, to become remarkably circumspect, packed with good tidings, bipartisanship, and compromise? Fuck no. So in a role reversal, do you possibly think they'd stop from filling the SCOTUS vacancy? I don't think so. Not on your damned life. The National Review wrote, however, history's on the side of the Republicans filling a Supreme Court vacancy in 2020. If a Supreme Court vacancy opens up between now and the end of the year, Republicans should fill it. Given the vital importance of the court in rank-and-file Republican voters and grassroots activists, particularly in the 5-decade-long quest to overturn Roe v. Wade, it would be political suicide for Republicans to refrain from filling it and filling a vacancy unless some law or important tradition, norm was against that. Well, it doesn't exist. It wasn't there. And then I have to point this out. I need to give credit where credit is due. Sergeant Booker is still in there. Sergeant Booker said last Friday, hey, one of the major reasons that you need to have a full Supreme Court is at 8, you could have a tie on whatever, fill in the blank. And then at a 4-4 tie, because this has happened before, whatever came up from a lower court, that lower court would hold. So, as Sergeant Booker indicated, putting 9, filling all seats, there somewhere along the way would be a tiebreaker. So, here's why I love the internet, because I went in the Wayback Machine, and I found this clip that Joe Biden, and I bet he wishes he had never said this, but basically Joe Biden says, as long as Donald Trump, President Trump, consults with Mitch, his Supreme Court pick is going to enjoy Biden's support. Did Biden really actually say this?
Back in 1992, in the aftermath of a bruising and polarizing confirmation process involving Clarence Thomas, who'd been nominated.
Oh, the blue circle of death. Come on. Come on.
Clarence Thomas, who'd been nominated by President Bush with no consultation just 4 days after the great Thurgood Marshall had retired. I took to the Senate floor to speak about the Supreme Court nominating process.
Here we go.
Senate Majority Leader, and he's my friend, Mitch McConnell, and other Republicans today have been quoting selectively from the remarks that I made in an attempt to justify refusing Chief Judge Garland a fair hearing and a vote on the floor of the Senate.
Here we go.
They completely ignore the fact that at the time, I was speaking of the dangers of nominating an extreme candidate without proper Senate consultation. They completely neglected to quote my unequivocal bottom line. So let me set the record straight, as they say. I said, and I quote, if the president consults and cooperates with the Senate or moderates his selections, then his nominees may enjoy my support, as did Justice Kennedy and Justice Souter.
And guess what's happening? Just like he demanded, Trump is consulting with the Senate. Yeah, so President Trump did consult with the Senate. Check and mate. But I had to play this. Anybody remember what happened with Clarence Thomas in 1991? Oh, that's right. He was talking to whom? That's right, Joe Biden.
Committee will please come to order. Judge, it's a tough day and tough night for you, I know. Let me ask, do you have anything you'd like to say before we begin? I understand that your preference is, which is totally and completely understandable, that we go 1 hour tonight, 30 minutes on each side. Am I correct in that?
That's right.
Do you have anything you'd like to say?
Senator, I would like to start by saying unequivocally, uncategorically, that I deny each and every single allegation against me today that suggested in any way that I had conversations of a sexual nature or about pornographic material with Anita Hill, that I ever attempted to date her, that I ever had any personal sexual interest in her, or that I in any way ever harassed her. A second, and I think more important point, I think that this today is a travesty.
Here we go.
I think that it is disgusting. I think that this hearing should never occur in America. This is a case in which this sleaze, this dirt, was searched for by staffers of members of this committee, was then leaked to the media, and this committee and this body validated it and displayed it at prime time over our entire nation, how would any member on this committee, any person in this room, or any person in this country would like sleaze said about him or her in this fashion, or this dirt dredged up, and this gossip and these lies displayed in this manner? How would any person like it? The Supreme Court is not worth it. No job is worth it. I'm not here for that. I'm here for my name, my family, my life, and my integrity. I think something is dreadfully wrong with this country when any person in this free country would be subjected to this. This is not a closed room. There was an FBI investigation. This is not an opportunity to talk about difficult matters privately or in a closed environment. This is a circus. It's a national disgrace. And from my standpoint, as a black American, as far as I'm concerned, it is a high-tech lynching for uppity blacks who in any way deign to think for themselves, to do for themselves, to have different ideas. And it is a message that unless you kowtow to an old order, this is what will happen to you. You will be lynched, destroyed, caricatured by a committee of the U.S. Senate rather than hung from a tree.
Powerful words. And then Joe Biden comes back himself.
A long way until November. We got more questions.
You got more questions, but I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't black.
It don't have nothing to do with Trump. It has to do with the fact I want something for my community.
You got more questions, but I tell you, if you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, then you ain't black.
Thanks, Joe. Appreciate that. Well, let's continue with Democrats putting words in their own mouths that they will and definitely, most definitely regret. So as I said, let the threats commence. On the 18th, that Friday, the Washington Examiner said, over our dead bodies, liberals threaten to burn it all down if GOP replace Ginsburg before Election Day. Former CNN host Reza Aslan joined several other verified Twitter accounts in threatening violence if Senate Republicans attempted to fill the Supreme Court seat of the late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Here's his tweet. It says, Reza Aslan, over our dead bodies, literally. Aslan also tweeted, if they even try to replace RBG, we burn the entire fucking thing down. If McConnell jams someone through, which he will, there will be riots, Washington Post and GQ writer Laura Bassett said, director of communications at the Anti-Violence Project. Eliel Cruz agreed with Williman's calls to shut things down by calling on people to march on Washington and just shut it down ourselves. He's against violence. Aaron Goinvane, author of a new book, Raising Boys to Be Good Men, responded, I should say, to McConnell's call to fill the vacancy seat by tweeting, fuck no, burn it all down. Writer and LGBT activist Charlotte Clymer opted not to wait until Republicans pushed a Ginsburg replacement, deciding instead to head straight to Mitch McConnell's house Friday night. Remember they did that? We're now walking to Mitch McConnell's house to protest, she said, before tweeting the intersection that McConnell allegedly lives on. His house is entirely dark. Significant police presence out front. It's clear he's not here, as confirmed by a neighbor who is not fond of him. Oh, sad. People are going home. Then somebody named Teresa Sirke on Twitter, and then people later said, well, that's not a real person. Yeah, but it's what the leftists are thinking, said, I don't think real Donald Trump understands. He is being removed from that office one way or another. If the law fails America, we will remove him with our bare hands. He only has 1/5 of America's support, and they are mostly cowardly, out of shape, poor, uneducated rednecks, to which I replied to that tweet when it came out about a week ago. Yeah, and we're all very heavily armed. Because that's where the Democrat Party is these days. Then the standard Mark I, Model I Jaffers, just another fucking rhino, that's what I call a Jaffer, they weighed in. Senate Republicans Lisa Murkowski and Senate Republican Susan Collins. They both said they would not support filling a SCOTUS vacancy this close to the election. Good to know. Nancy Pelosi weighed in. Now I want you to listen very carefully to this. This is when she's talking with George Stephanopoulos, and towards the end of it, listen very closely. Now she appears to be kind of cogent. Maybe the gin wasn't kicking in yet, but then things kind of go off the script.
So what can you do then? Some have mentioned the possibility, if they try to push through a nominee in a lame duck session, that you and the House could move to impeach President Trump or Attorney General Barr as a way of stalling and preventing the Senate from acting on this nomination.
Well, we have our options. We have arrows in our quiver that I'm not about to discuss right now. But the fact is, we have a big challenge in our country. This president has threatened to not even accept the results of the election with statements that he and his henchmen have made. So right now, our main goal, and I think Ruth Bader Ginsburg would want that to be, would be to protect the integrity of the election as we protect the American people from the coronavirus.
Okay, stop. Remember, she said Ruth Bader Ginsburg would want it the way that we want it right now. Remember that.
And I have faith in the American people on this Sunday morning. I hope and pray we have a vaccine and that it will be soon, but it must be safe and efficacious when we do, not one day sooner.
Okay, we transitioned from Ruth Bader Ginsburg to Wuhan 19. How'd that happen?
Not one day later than that. But the fact is, this administration has been a total failure in protecting the health and well-being of the American people, and it has had an impact on our economy. The lives, the livelihood, and the life of our democracy are threatened by this administration. So again, when people say, what can I do? You can vote, you can get out the vote, and you can do so as soon as possible. 10 states, as I said, on Friday started their early voting the day that we lost Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
But to be clear, you're not taking any arrows out of your quiver. You're not ruling anything out.
Wait for it.
Good morning. Sunday morning. We have a responsibility. We take an oath to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States. We have a responsibility to meet the needs of the American people. That is when we weigh the equities of protecting our democracy.
Good morning. Sunday morning. You should have seen the look on George Stephanopoulos' face. Okay. Not long ago, Joe Biden said himself, the American people deserve a fully staffed court.
People deserve a fully staffed court of 9.
The president nominates, and then the Senate advises and consents or not, but they go forward with the process.
What we're seeing here, and I hope this is temporary, is a disrespect for the Constitution.
The Constitution is 100% clear. The President of the United States has the right to nominate someone to be a justice of the Supreme Court. Senate's function is to hold hearings and to vote.
The blockade on filling a naturally occurring vacancy, in my view, is harmful to the independence of the Article III branch.
You cannot keep a seat on the Supreme Court, which represents all of us. You cannot keep it vacant against the Constitution.
You can't keep it vacant.
Everything they can to avoid acknowledging the legitimacy of our democratically elected president.
The American people expect the president's nominee to be given a fair hearing and a timely vote in the Senate.
Every day that goes by without a ninth justice is another day the American people's business is not getting done.
I say to you, do your job. Vote for a Supreme Court nominee.
Instead of just saying the blanket rule is no matter who you are, no matter what your qualifications, because you are sent by this president, we will create a unique rule for you and refuse to entertain you.
One of the most important consequences of who is president of the United States is who sits on the United States Supreme Court.
If you want to stop extremism in your party, you can start by showing the American people that you respect the President of the United States and the Constitution.
The American people deserve a fully staffed court of 9.
They do, don't they? Well, remember what I said? I said Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Didn't she say something about that? Do you think maybe I have a cut or a quote about Ruth Bader Ginsburg and what she said about filling a SCOTUS vacancy in an election year? She said, quote, "That's their job," in July 2016. "There's nothing in the Constitution saying the president stops being president in his last year." That's RBG. Right back at you, leftists. Right back at you, Democrats. 8 is not a good number for a collegial body that sometimes disagrees, Ginsburg said on the issue a few months later. Justice Sonia Sotomayor, who was with her, agreed, quote, "I think we hope there will be 9 as quickly as possible. What we do is automatically affirm the decision of the court below. No opinion is written, no reasons are given, and the affirmance has no precedential value," Ginsburg explained. "It's just as though we denied review." And then RBG said on CNBC, she said she opposes. This was July of last year. RBG said she opposes proposals from 2020 Democrats to expand the Supreme Court. She said, quote, "It would be that one side saying, when we're in power, we're going to enlarge the number of judges so we would have more people who would vote the same way we want them to." She told that to NPR in an interview that aired. 9 seems to be a good number, she said. It's been that way for a long time. So several Democrat candidates have said they're open to increasing the size of the 9-justice court. That's called court packing. Imagine that. But guaranteed, very, very, very guaranteed, you've never heard any of those stories or heard those audio cuts from the American media maggots. That is purposeful. You can't afford to be actually informed, or you may begin to think clearly and independently. Now, one of the final audio cuts. I found something. Because I go to the internet and scrub through crap, just like journalists can do in the newspapers, in the TV shows. I do it. The American media maggots won't. I'm doing the job the American media maggots won't. This is Barack Hussein Obama back in 2016.
What is supposed to happen now? When there is a vacancy on the Supreme Court, the President of the United States is to nominate someone. The Senate is to consider that nomination. And either they disapprove of that nominee or that nominee is elevated to the Supreme Court. Historically, this has not been viewed as a question.
So, Barack Hussein Obama, if it wasn't a question then, why is it a question now? So Democrats are refusing to face that very difficult truth. Okay, if Ruth Bader Ginsburg wasn't all taken by herself, and if the Democrats under Obama were playing tactically, what would have happened and could have happened, but they decided no, she would have retired and allowed Obama to appoint her replacement quite easily. But no, that was her decision and their decision. No one hosed the Democrats except Ruth Bader Ginsburg and the Democrats themselves. Now, this is interesting as sort of a last point, and then I'd like you to wrap up, Jack. Now, at this point, it looks like Chuck Grassley and Mitt Romney have said, okay, we will vote in the Senate instead of refusing to vote. And then I think Trump says he's going to announce his nomination for SCOTUS either this Friday or Saturday. I'm guessing it's going to be Amy Coney Barrett. I could be wrong. And then next Tuesday? Okay, here's the final question for you, Jack Alexander. Next Tuesday, will there be an actual debate between President Trump and Joe Biden?
I'm hoping so, but I think the Vegas odds have it that Joe Biden will suddenly be diagnosed with COVID and will be unavailable.
Now, other people have said that too. Other people said that about 2 weeks ago. I said it about 2 weeks ago. I think you said it even before I did.
Mm-hmm.
So, Tuesday, well, everything changes. Let's wait for the weekend. But wouldn't it be odd? $1 million to you, Jack Alexander. $1 million. If after Trump announces his pick on Friday or Saturday, within 24 hours, Jack, does Joe Biden suddenly start to swoon and beads of sweat begin to collect on his hair plugs? What do you think?
Oh, definitely. I think he already is. Yeah. Actually, I think he's already soiling his Depends.
Or the other thing that I would insist upon is check for earpieces. And the other question is, what are they going to allow him to have on his podium? And what are they going to allow him adjacent that podium? Will they allow a teleprompter? I'm very, very curious. The other thing is, will they allow him to wear glasses? Mostly, I'm looking for an earpiece. I'm not kidding. I'm looking for an earpiece. So, folks, most of you here, thanks for listening. Jack, tell us where your show can be found, where and what time, please.
Okay, it's the Jack Alexander Experiment. You can find it on via my pages on Facebook, YouTube, Parler, and Magabook. The audio is available wherever good podcasts can be found. You can check out the website, www.jackalexanderexperiment.com. If you haven't seen my video on asking for asylum, please email asylum@jackalexanderexperiment.com and I will send you to the links. I have posted the links in both the Facebook and SHR Media chats, but I will do that again. And I'm asking people to take a look at it, and if you feel the calling within you, respectfully send those to your federal Congress people and senators. Respectfully ask them to help get involved, to help push the State Department to get the embassy here in Australia to help us with amnesty, so we can get out of here, so I can get my family out of here to safety.
There was a final comment, and I'd like your input on this before we go, Jack. I'm looking at Facebook chat, and Jimmy Collins said it will be a virtual debate. I have not heard that. So does anybody know? Jimmy Collins says that in Facebook chat. Is it going to be a virtual debate? Is that what the rules are? I thought it was going to be in person. Anybody else have an update? Or is that going to be a last-second kind of thing where suddenly Biden's team says, we'll debate on Tuesday, but it's going to have to be from Joe in his basement. Then Joe is going to be a cheating motherfucker. Guaranteed. He'll be on prompter, earpiece, and people will be feeding him cards, and he'll probably be on meth or crack. One of the two, to keep him up.
Yeah, I think that's a distinct possibility. I mean, they've probably already sent the questions so that his team is already prepped, so he doesn't look like an absolute doofus.
And then can you imagine the cheating that will occur if it's a virtual debate? OMG. Yeah. All right, Jack, thanks for being here. I greatly appreciate it. We will have to obviously do it again. I'm working right now to get Star Parker on the show. I'm working to get Eric Regard on the show. I'm also working to get the SHR's very own Shannon Wright back on the show. She's at wrightformaryland.com. Wrightformaryland.com. She's running for mayor of Baltimore, and she could always use whatever you can throw at her. I've thrown a couple of $100 at her myself, so I don't just advocate this, but she's running for mayor of Baltimore. She's a God-fearing woman, and especially if she gets to be mayor of Baltimore, all the citizens of Baltimore better watch out, because you will be towing her line. Definitely. Hit her, give her some cash. That's it for me. Jack Alexander, thank you ever so kindly again for being here. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, thanks for listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon radio show, live and direct right here from the sumptuous, palatial, and resplendent SHR Media studios. Now, if you want to contact me, you will find me on Twitter at BZEP, at BZEP, where I'm very, 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 very active right there. Promotional consideration is also by the Lockheed Martin Skunk Works, and also by the Boeing Company. If it ain't Boeing, I ain't going. And also, Pratt & Whitney Engines Thrust. You can trust. Tiaras are by My Little Pony. Thanks to my personal KC-135 Kettle One refueling team, with whom I will be consorting in less than an hour. Thanks for Jack Alexander's presence here tonight. Thanks for everybody listening live in Facebook. Also, thanks for being in Facebook chat. Folks, thank you for watching on YouTube. Thanks for listening on SHRmedia.com, and thanks for being in the SHRmedia.com chat room, where we have only the finest of Corinthian leather. God bless. Take care. Be safe. See you Tuesday.
Everybody quiet down now and get some sleep.
Night, everybody.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Ben.
Good night, everyone. Good night, Mama. Good night, Daddy.
Good night, children.
Good night, Daddy. Good night, Elizabeth.
Good night, John Boy. Good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, Jim Bob.
What's going on? I was asleep. What's everybody doing?
Good night,
Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, and good luck.